So these are the things that I wish I knew as a landlord at 20 years old that no one told me about, but being in a situation where I want to spill it onto you so you don't make the same mistakes, or even just at least take things into consideration before you think about investing in real estate. And this is coming from someone that full-fledged into it, no rich dad, no experience, just ran into it. The number one thing is you need to understand timelines and expenses and cash flow, right? What do I mean by this? Just because a property you're trying to buy already is making money and you think, oh, that's how much I'm gonna make, or you think, hey, look, this is how much you can make, you need to understand the difference, right? If a property is already, say, Section 8 approved, it's making money, that's a good unit. If the tenant is good, you need to do a pre-screen, see how the tenant is, ask the agent, your agent, ask their agent, ask the seller, ask to talk about the tenant, right? And the reason why I say this is because if you inherit that property and the tenant is good, but the lease agreement's about to end and they want to move, that is lowering your cash flow, because yeah, you're gonna make money 1 month, but as soon as they leave, that's no money that's coming in. That's vacancies for that. They're taking out all of their furniture. They're probably gonna scratch some sort of unit. So then you need to be in a situation where you are taking all of those expenses into consideration. Do not just get blinded by price, down payment, and cash flow. There are so many other expenses that go into it. You need to think about, if this tenant leaves, they take all of say they were the ones that provided the utilities for themselves in terms of the gas, the gas oven or the refrigerator. What if they take those? That's $1,000 at least that you're dropping on those. So understanding your profitability when it comes to the timeline of the purchase that you're making. So if a property has a good tenant, it's Section 8 approved, and it's cash flowing, that is a good property because one, it's Section 8 approved, so you don't need to worry about the timeline of that inspection. It probably has a lead-based PACE certification, so you don't have to worry about getting that. That's another expense. That is another set of timeline when they go and approve you. And three, you don't have to worry about the tenant placement because the tenant is good. Now you just need to worry about, okay, how much is it gonna make? How much do I need to put in? All in, right? Closing costs, down payment. Do not be in a situation where you only look at the down payment because you'll get blindsided. It's better to be very conservative and come in with less, as opposed to being in a situation where you come in with less and you need to make up this fucking money at closing. Because even if you make up this money at closing, that means you have no reserves, right? You're going all in, and it's like, don't do that. Don't do that at all. So if you're looking at a unit that's, say, in a situation like this one that we have a student acquiring where it has no tenant in it, it's in a situation where, like I said, it's vacant. Another thing is that it has evidence of like termites being there, right? That is extending to the timeline. Termites aren't that big of a deal. They're not really that bad. You get fumigated, you'll be fine, right? But that is a timeline issue. So I say, okay, how do we configure this timeline? I'm marketing this property for the tenant. We're getting them people to move in, right? But I'm in a situation where I said, hey, look, you need to understand that maybe you're not gonna be able to move a tenant in for the first week after you close. Why? Because you need to do a fumigation. Let's take a week. So okay, that's another week that you need to take into consideration as a potential tenant not wanting to move in because they found another unit. So you need to go and look, all right, well, this is how much I'm putting in, this is how much money I'm gonna make. I have a tenant ready, this tenant's gonna be wanting to move in, after on the 7th because they're closing the 1st, for example. But I need to get a Section 8 inspection done by the 10th. Why? Because the Section 8 inspection is going to take time of one schedule, which is things you're still liable for, right? The vacancy, the mortgage payment, which will eventually come. You need to think about how long am I going to be in a position where I go and have the inspector come out. Am I going to pass it on the first fucking try? Am I doing any sort of inspections, upgrades in the beginning to make sure I pass it on the first try? Am I buying something that's already renovated? If you're not buying something that's already renovated, how fast is this contractor that I have going to turn it around so it can be rent ready? How much is that going to cost? Those are things you have to consider. How much does it cost to get it rent ready? How long does it take to get this tenant in there? How long until the Section 8 inspector is going to approve my unit and I'm going to be in a situation where I get paid from Section 8? Those, because it typically takes like 2 weeks or a week to even like 2 months to get approved depending on how backed up they are. So it's like, okay, am I doing my down payment? Am I doing my closing costs? Am I doing my monthly cash flow? Am I doing how long it's going to take for me to get approved? Is it already approved? Will it pass on the first try based off its current state? If it does not fit those criteria, you need to weigh out what makes more sense for you. If you have a bunch of money but you don't have time, it may not make sense to go and buy something that is going to need a ton of time and energy in terms of repairs to go and get ready, because if you're not doing it and if you're the one doing it, it's not a property management company, that's a lot of time and energy you're gonna have to allocate, right? So you have to look at your situation, evaluate what are your goals, what do you want to do, how much time do you have, how much money do you have, and how much money do you want to make. If you want to go and just get a turnaround cash flow right away, you might have to up your buy box to maybe $150,000 in terms of these Section 8 rentals if that's something you're buying that are out of state. and you're going all in. There's a unit that I saw earlier that was like $1,800 a month in rent. It's like $140,000 the purchase price. So down payment $28,000. Closing costs will probably be like another $5,000. But that one's already section approved. Timeline saved. It already has a tenant in it. Timeline saved. And there's no mechanical issues. So there's money saved and time and energy saved on that. So that's a good deal, right? It depends on what your buy box is. Alongside that, you have to look at, if I'm going completely from zero, what is my goal in terms of the investment side at all? Is your goal to go and get appreciation? Is your goal to get cash flow? Is your goal to be in a position where your money grows? Because most markets may not make sense for you if you have one goal and you're trying to do something else. If you're trying to go into Cleveland like we are to get cash flow, but you want appreciation, it's just not going to make sense. It's not going to be feasible. But you need to weigh out the pros and cons of each, right? My pros and cons of investing into Cleveland, for example, is I want cash flow, and I know that this cash flow is going to allow me to have my car covered, have other expenses covered, and roll over into buying more cash flow. So I have the peace of mind to go and put my active income into an appreciating unit, pull from that, and do that, right? But I'm taking into account timeline, money, and energy into it. I don't want to deal with this. If I have to deal issues with this, it's going to take away from this. So it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to get appreciation, do not look at something like Cleveland. Look at maybe something like Arizona, somewhere that's also a landlord-friendly state. You need to understand the landlord laws. If you don't understand the landlord laws and where you're buying, then you're basically just going in blind, and you're probably going to get fucked up by some sort of tenant that is in a situation where they understand it better than you, and that's why they take advantage of it, and maybe even get other landlords to vouch for them so they could just get rid of them and then move on. So when you understand these landlord laws, you're in a situation where you also know your rights as a landlord. There's people that whole seminars to say, hey, look, this is your rights as a tenant. What about your rights as a landlord? If you're buying in California, there's a possibility that a tenant might squat for 12 months, not pay you. You're responsible for that $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month mortgage. But guess what? They are technically going to somehow be in the right. That's just how the California laws work. So it makes sense to not be in a situation where you're going to invest in California if your goal is to have no time, no energy, and still cash flow, because your mortgage will be so damn expensive. Maybe they lose their damn job. They're not going to be able to pay you. And you're going to be in a situation where you're still liable for it. It's in your name. You want to be in a position where on paper you don't own anything as much as you can for the beginning, because you're going to be able to scale. For me, I don't own anything because everything's on my, nothing's on my credit report because it's all DSCR, right? But when I own everything on the LLC's debt, it allows me to scale because my debt to income doesn't get affected, right? The amount of money I make to the amount of money I spend, this ratio doesn't shrink. It stays the same because there's no debt in terms of monthly fixed, because the house is on my name. My name is, I'm clean and clear. I have no debt, right? So you have to take that in consideration in terms of your timeline. If you're trying to scale and you're trying to get into real estate investing and get multiple units back to back to back, if you make $10K a month, you buy a unit that's $3,000 a month expense. Say you're profiting $500. The lender's only going to qualify you off of 75% of that coverage. So 3,500 covered by 75%. That other 25% is still technically debt that you owe. So that's on your report. So it's like, do I have enough money to buy that? Do I have enough money to that I'm making every month to go and buy two? Because then my debt to income is going to get even more affected. You have to look at those things. You know what I'm saying? Because if you have 100, say you're 0%, but then now you have 25% debt to income, maybe you have credit cards, now you're at fucking 40% debt to income, there's a very slim chance you're going to get approved for another unit. So that's why you have to look at the pros and cons of each. And so that's back to what I was saying about expenses. That's something you have to take into consideration. Down payment, closing cost. Is there furnished? Is there those two utilities in there? Alongside that, it's also your screening of the tenants, and also being in a situation where you're not wasting your time with bad tenants or just bad people in general, right? The main thing that I would say is always screening every single individual that you work with. It doesn't matter who the fuck it is. It could be the agent that you work with. It could be the property manager. It could be the fucking insurance guy, right? You need to treat everything like a straight one-on-one transaction in terms of human to human. That you want to spot on their bullshit, right? You want to go and look, hey, look, yeah, you're in a position where I think that you really do really good work, really good on paper, but how are you with things that do not benefit you? How did you respond to me before I was in a situation where I wasn't even referred to you? I just hit you up. I want to see how you treat me as someone that has not offered any sort of benefit for you. I never said I want to work with you. I just want to ask some questions. See how they are when they do not when you do not benefit them, genuinely, because you don't know. You don't know how this person's going to be. And when you really test that, you'll be in a situation where you see the true them. Alongside that, asking the right questions in terms of tenants, property management, agents, and seeing what's up. If you're looking at agents, saying, hey, look, if you're buying out of state the way we are, hey, how many out of state investors do you work with, on a yearly basis? Okay, what are typical the buy boxes they buy? Let them explain it, because you want to see if they're actually bullshitting or not. Oh, how many do you, if I say, how many out of state investors do you work with? And they're like, oh, I work with a ton. Okay, it could be bullshit. I'll say, okay, like how many exactly though? Like ballpark, do you need like 20? Okay, like 20. I mean, like, what is kind of the buy box of the people you work with? Is it like, are they buying, $100,000 units, $300,000 units? Oh, okay, and then how long, like, I don't know if you ever check in with them, like how long does it take them to get their units rent ready, or just like, getting tenants in them? Oh, well, like it depends. This would be bullshit. If you say, hey, look, honestly, it depends on how they answer, right? And the personality. They say, hey, look, it depends. I've checked with most of my investors. Sometimes they'll say, look, it takes like a month. Sometimes it takes like instantly. It just depends on how fast the investor is, how big their team is. I'll be like, all right, cool, that makes sense. That makes sense. In terms of the property management side, I'll say, hey, look, do you have any specific skill sets that you're a specialist at? If they're like general, they may be fucking mid at everything. They may be ass at everything. But you're in a position where you're still paying for that motherfucker. So it's like, okay, come to me, and if they came to me, I'll say, hey, look, what are some specialist skill sets that you have that you guys focus on? Oh, we're really good at electrical. Okay, well, that's really good that I have that. But you're able to do everything, right? Yeah, we do. We have the contacts. Okay, all of the above. How many out-of-state investors do you guys work with? Are you guys in a situation where it matters how many doors they have? See how they answer that question. Oh, well, we work with a ton of out-of-state investors. Typically, it's 10% fee. Once you get to 10, 15 doors, we lower it. Then you want to see, okay, I mean, like, how long does it take typically for you guys to get a property rent ready if it's not ready already? Now you're saying, okay, how long is my timeline? Goes back to the original thing. If you're going and you're just jumping based off of, money that you'll make right off the rip, you're going to be in a position where, like I said, you're shooting yourself on the foot, dude. If you're shooting yourself on the foot, then best believe it's going to be a fucking pain in the ass to be dealing with a property management company that, like I said, genuinely does not give a flying fuck. They're just worried about either getting you on board and getting a setup fee and not giving a fuck, or they're just not gonna really give you the time of day because you don't have the amount of doors. That's why it's essential to ask how many doors they have, because if they don't really take you serious, if you have a lot of doors, let me see, cancel call. If they don't take you seriously, you have a lot of doors, you just come to them, you don't want to be like bluffing, you don't want to say, hey, look, I have a ton of doors, and then you don't, because that's gonna create a bad relationship off the foot. You never want to lie. You want to maybe present yourself well, but don't be lying like I have 100 fucking doors and then you have 2 or I have 1, because then what are they gonna do? They'll be like, oh, this guy's full of shit, and then I take you serious. Be honest with them, be straight up, present yourself well, right? Make sure that this person, like I said, how they treat you with things that do not benefit them, so you're in a situation where you see the true them. Because the last thing you want to do is deal with some property management company that doesn't take you serious if you don't have 15, 20, 30 doors, because that's just fucked up. In terms of tenant side, it's all the similar thing. I'll say, hey, look, how long did it take you to get out of your old, like, say, for example, I go to the prior landlord of the old tenant. I'll say, hey, look, how long did it take you to go and get your unit that they were staying in rent ready after they left? If they say 3 weeks, I'm be like, what the fuck? I thought that they left it in a good condition. Because what they're always gonna try and do is get you off the phone. They don't want to be on the phone with you. They don't want to talk with you. You need to go into the mindset with that. How am I gonna keep this person on the phone for as long as possible? And how can I match the persona that came with me? If they're like, hey, how's it going? And I go, yeah, dude, like, how long, I just want to ask you some questions about this tenant. You're not matching them. But they're like, hey, how's it going? Boom, boom, boom. Who am I speaking with? I'll be like, this is Xavier Vega. I'll just match him and sound confused so they humanize you. And then from there, you're going to go and be in a situation where you go and ask them these questions, things that make them think, because they're trying to get you off the phone. I would say, hey, look, how long did it take this person's unit to be rent ready after they left? If that will make them think, it's not going to make them say, hey, look, if I said, hey, how are they as a tenant? Good. Okay, well, then they're trying to get you on the phone. But that's going to make them think it's going to be a real answer. You're going to see their tone. You're going to see the response time. You're going to, maybe even if they're on a Zoom, you may be able to see their facial structure after it. Those are all things you have to read, right? Alongside that, say, hey, look, did this person pay bi-weekly? They pay all the time? Were they Section 8? The other thing that I do is being in a position where I say, hey, look, were they covering all the utilities? Were they always consistently changing jobs? Is this accurate? How long did they say you? Did they say why they were leaving? So you can see if the stories match up. All questions you need to tailor based on your goals, your situation, and what you're trying to do. Those are a million things you need to do. Lender side, I would say, like I said, it's always typically the same thing. The big thing with the lenders is guys that one can actually close the deal, two actually answer the motherfucking phone. I don't give a flying fuck how good you are at lending, how you are at closing deals. If you do not answer the phone, I do not want to fucking work with you. I do not care. So that is me personally. Also, leveraging business credit is probably the biggest one in terms of a landlord, because you want to extend your time horizons in terms of the money you have to put up. 0% interest, doesn't hurt your credit report. I would say that's a huge fucking thing for me. But I would say these are the main things that I was told, or just the ways to approach things in terms of being a landlord at a young age. But the biggest thing I would say is just the right questions, communication, the right context, understanding timelines, finances, cash flow, all correctly in terms of your situation, because mine is not the same as you, and you are not the same as me, right? Or you're not the same as the person next to you. And if you understand those correctly based on your situation, you're able to present yourself well, communicate correctly, you'll be in a proper situation where you're not getting treated incorrectly just because of your age. I think a lot of people are in situations where they get mistreated because of their age, simply because they don't know how to present themselves correctly. If you present yourself correctly, you're sharp, you're smooth, you're knowledgeable what you're talking about, the last thing people are going to worry about is your age. Maybe they'll compliment you on your age. Like, damn, dude, how are you this sharp at such a young age? And it's like, okay, because I put in the time. I'm not going to be in a situation where I have this confidence if I don't have evidence. If I have evidence about the things that I'm talking about because of the work that I put in, that it's not confidence, it's just proof. I'm just relaying proof. But a lot of people don't have evidence because they didn't put in the work, so they're in a situation where they're just relaying bullshit. So these are probably the main things that I would focus on if I was, restarting my whole landlord journey again. It's honestly been like ups and downs, just like everything in this world, but I'm very grateful for it. And yeah, I would just say that take these all into consideration. You have any questions? I know this is kind of a raw, uncut, everything. Just leave them in the comments below. Message me, whatever. I'm always going to keep it raw, straight up. Understand your timelines. Everything. Like I said, if you're going in, it's a $100,000 house, 20% down payment, 5% closing costs, it's going to be $25,000, or 7% closing costs. You have 3 months worth of vacancies. You have a $1,000, stuff you need to put into the unit. Maybe some touch-ups. That's not a 20% down purchase. You need to calculate your cash on cash, basically your ROI, based off of all of those expenses. Not off a 20% down, not off a 27% down, or $27,000 down, because that's your cash to close. After all the motherfucking expenses. That's what I would do, right? Because those are things that go into it. But if you have any questions, leave them down below. These are raw uncuts. If you want more videos like this, let me know. I'm actually going to hop onto a call with an accountant, which some of our private members will basically hear these raw uncut calls. Section 8 cartel, best fucking program on Section 8 in the world, loading. Trust me, I fucking will say this 1,000 times over and over and over, because integrity, morals, honesty, and speed will get you so much farther in terms of money, growing things, than anything else on this planet. I appreciate y'all. And I got this DJI Osmo, so be ready for more content.